Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Rachel Alters, and we're going to talk about Guardian and Berkshire Disability Insurance Company. They basically go by Guardian now, but for some of the individual disability products, they were sold under the Berkshire Life umbrella, and sometimes they may still sell them like that. Bottom line, it's one day you get a letter Guardian, one day you get a letter Berkshire. But this video is designed to provide people some helpful information and tips about applying for long-term disability benefits with Guardian, what they should expect, share our views about dealing with them because we've been dealing with them for so many years and we see their claims from applying through denials through litigation with them. So first thing, Rach, I like to do in these videos is a person calls you and says, I have a Guardian disability policy and I'd like some help with applying. And what is your view of getting a call that it's Guardian versus any of the 35 other companies that sell disability insurance?
It's funny that you asked that, Greg, because I used to have a different impression of Guardian. I've been doing this for quite a long time, many, many years. And it used to be that Guardian was the insurance company who would really would pay on legitimate claims. You know, they would assume that the client was telling the truth. They would review the medical records. They would put them on claim. And, you know, if there was an issue down the road, yes, maybe they would question it and possibly cut them off. But now they've become the insurance carrier who does not want to pay anybody. They are questioning everything the clients are sending in. My clients are having a very difficult time getting their claims approved once they file the applications, and Guardian's become that insurance company that really gives us a lot of trouble. Didn't used to be that way. I was always recommending people purchase Guardian policies because they were the company that really truly stood behind their product and would pay their claims. So I would say in the last year and a half to 2 years, they've done a 180 on that. Having some tough time dealing with them, and I'm in a lot of cases that are in litigation with them as well, as they've denied claims and they still don't want to pay them. So this is where I am with Guardian. We are fighting with them, but you know, we continue to fight the good fight.
Yeah, so it's an interesting view because and one of the reasons why I wanted to we did a video like this 7 years ago where we're like, oh, Guardian's one of the top 5 companies, and the company, there's humans behind these companies, and obviously there's been a change of management in claims, and it takes one person. We've seen companies that were down in the dumps and a person comes in and the company gets turned around and they're great. In this case, right now, as we're filming this video in October of 2020, Guardian's claims perspective, and who's ever calling the shots over there now, is basically to say, we're going to bust balls. I mean, that's not a legal term. It's just, we're going to give people a hard time. We're going to try to delay. We're not going to make finite decisions. And, I've been dealing with a claimant on a great claim for 11 months. And it's a question of whether the claimant is totally disabled. And basically, they don't make a decision. They've asked for more things that I could ever imagine. And Rach, when we submit an application package, having done thousands of applications with multiple different companies, we send everything they could possibly ask for. We don't rely on the basic claim forms that they ask for, because we know they put out these precursor type forms so that they can make the process go on month and month. We send in everything there is. And this claim has been going on for 10 months now. And what they think they can do in some situations is they think they can send payments, put a reservation of rights on a claim, which means we reserve the right to take the money back. We're not admitting anything, but we haven't made a decision. And it's not fair, it's not appropriate, and it's not right, because the person who may be getting paid benefits has no guarantee that payments are going to continue, and they don't know where they stand in terms of the disability company. So yeah, the perspective right now is on Guardian is that they got to get their act together with claims, because they're treating people like they're liars, they're committing fraud, and it used to be, we'll pay the claim and we'll ask questions later, and that's not the way it's been. So Rachel, we both just shared our views on what we think of Guardian and Berkshire at the moment, which is not the greatest things, but let's get into some tips for what the people should expect when they do need to apply. And What are in summary, what's the first most important thing that a claimant is going to have in order to get their benefits approved?
The most important thing that I always tell all of my clients when they're applying for a disability claim is to make sure that their medical records are in order. So they have to have good medical care with treating doctors who are specialists in the area that, that specializes in their disabilities. So if they have a heart condition, they have to make sure that they're treating with a good cardiologist. If they have Parkinson's, they have to treat with a neurologist and so forth. So they have to make sure that the medical records are, that there's a continuity of care that shows that they've been treating for a long period of time and that this condition is not going to get better. And that not only will the doctor fill out paperwork stating that they have restrictions and limitations that are preventing them from being able to perform the material substantial duties of their occupation, but they also have to make sure that the medical records also will show that, because the insurance carrier is not just going to believe a doctor who writes a note stating that his patient is not able to work anymore. They're going to want to see that there's been a continuity of care over the past few months or even farther back that shows that they have this condition, that they've treated for it, and that the condition is not getting any better. So this is very important, and I tell all my clients that I need to review all their medical records first before they start sending in claim forms to the carrier, because I want to make sure that they've hired, that they're seeing the right doctors. If not, then we need to send them to the right doctors and make sure that the doctors are documenting properly, because again, these doctors are trained to treat patients for their illnesses. They're not trained in writing medical records that are going to support disability claims. So that's where we come in.
And Rach, how do you work with your clients to help make sure they have the best medical documentation possible to get their benefits approved?
Well, I think I said earlier that I will review all the medical records that they have over, let's say, the past year. I review them all and I determine if I believe that Guardian would look at these records and believe that the client was disabled, because doing this for so long, we know what Guardian's looking for. So they're going to send these medical records to their peer review physicians who work for Guardian, and they're going to scrutinize all the records and they cherry pick them and they look for records that indicate that the claimant isn't disabled. So what we have to do is make sure that the medical records show that there are specific restrictions and limitations documented. So if you have a severe back issue, we have to make sure that the physician is documenting that you're having an issue sitting for extended periods of time due to pain, that you have a range of motion issue, that you can't lift a certain amount. And all this has to be in the record over time. And if you've had this condition, and this is also really important, and I tell all my clients this, if you've had this condition for a long period of time and you've been working with it, the carrier is going to use it against you if you try and file a claim 6 months later if the condition hasn't progressed. Because what they will say is, oh, well, you've worked with this same condition for 6 months, so what's different today? So I always tell my clients, make sure that if your condition has gotten worse, that your doctors are documenting that your condition has worsened, the pain has worsened, and that you are, whatever testing that possibly can be ordered to indicate and prove that the condition's gotten worse, that's all in your medical records. Because otherwise, I tell my claimants, they're like, well, I've tried my hardest, I've become, I've been this superwoman and I've been working through this and I just can't do it anymore. I want to file a claim. And I said, well, let's talk about that first and let's see what the records indicate, because we do have to show, if possible, that your condition has gotten worse.
So what's great about what you said, and that a lot of people don't realize, is you said, look, doctors don't document for insurance companies, they're documenting for the patient. And many times you said, I tell my clients. So basically you're consulting / coaching your clients to educate the doctors about what needs to be in the records, because it's not what the doctors learned in medical school. It's what that the disability claim reps are trained to look for. So you have to coach and educate the client to make sure all of this is in your records, not just with one doctor, but if you have 2 or 3, every doctor. And not just this one time you go, but for the life of this claim, you need to keep telling your doctors X, Y, and Z. And then after you review the records, keep telling them, this is what I saw. Your doctor needs to say this. Because unfortunately, Rachel, the claim is only as good as it is on paper. And I often tell the clients, we need to make you look messed up on paper. Because if you don't, they're going to cherry pick out what's not in there and basically say, yeah, we think that you have the condition. There's no doubt you have the diagnosis, but guess what? Diagnosis doesn't equal disability. We don't think you're disabled. We don't see this, and that in there. And what we try to do as the lawyers helping you is to get all of that stuff in there so that we avoid that particular argument. The other thing I want you to talk about, Rach, is occupational support, what your occupation is at the time you become disabled, is often not enough to just have the employer statement. Why is it important to describe what your occupation is in a Guardian policy or a Berkshire policy and really not getting subject to these basic definitions or dictionary of occupational title definitions that Guardian and Berkshire like to rely upon?
It's really, really important, Greg, because most people's occupations are not, they're much more detailed and much more involved than they are described in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles or on ONET. They'll have an occupation of whatever physician, and they'll have maybe 5 or 6 different descriptions. But most people that that are physicians, or if they're surgeons or they have specialties like cardiologists, they have a vast amount of occupational duties and responsibilities that they have to do, every single day in order to get their job done properly. So what I always tell my clients is, sit down, think about, make a list of all of the duties that are required in your job. And it's not just the duties while you're working, but some people work, a physician will see patients and then they have to dictate the notes, and then they have to sit down at a computer sometimes and type the notes. And then they have to review some medical records when they go home. And their job doesn't just stop when the patient leaves their office. So a lot of these, just using a physician as example, have so many duties that go well beyond what the Dictionary of Occupational Titles will list. So I always tell my clients to sit down and to think about all the duties that they are required to do throughout the day and in the evening as well. And then also to, describe, if these are physical or if these are more mental. A lot of people have physical requirements in their jobs, and if you're a surgeon and you have to lift a patient or you have to be leaning over for extended periods of time, and then also you have to be hyper-focused and you have to be 100% on your game. And if you're taking pain medication, for example, then that's something that would obviously distract you and cause side effects that would inhibit your ability to be able to work. So it's very important not just to leave it up to the employer to fill out the list of duties or to leave it up to Guardian to go to the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. You really need to have each claimant specifically set out their job duties, and how they affect them during the day, and what percentage of time they spend on each of these duties.
Right, and to dial it in even a further notch, Rachel, we have videos about if you're a doctor or a dentist, what types of documentation is going to be expected. But keeping this video relatively general, they're going to want other work-related information. They're going to want your tax returns, your payroll stubs, your financial statements, your monthly P&Ls. They're going to want production reports if you're a physician, monthly production reports. If you're a dentist, they're going to want dental codes. And no matter what occupation you're in, they're going to want a copy of your calendar to see what you were doing on a day in, day out. If you have patients, how many patients were coming in. They want to get a feel for what evidence do you have to show what you were doing on a day-to-day basis. So you should be prepared that they will seek and ask for that information. And often they're entitled to much of that information because it shows they have a duty to investigate what your occupational duties were beyond just what you might be telling them, and they have the right to verify those things. The other thing that Berkshire and Guardian have been doing that I don't think they're allowed to do often is they want to go out and try to talk to other people. And you got to be really careful with the authorization forms that you give them, because if you sign their general authorization form that they send out to you, you're giving them access to everything. And I mean everything. Often first of all, the ability to talk to anyone and anybody about your claim, not just your doctors. It's one thing to get your medical records, but it's another thing to say, we need access to your bank accounts. We need access to your tax returns. We need access to Social Security Administration, we need to run your credit report. They don't need to run your credit report. There's no reason. It doesn't matter what your credit is. They're using your credit report to try to see what have you bought lately, where have you shopped, what credit cards did you apply for? Because the next thing they want to do is then they want to try to ask for your credit card statements and see where have you been? Did you take any trips, or did you buy a new car, or have you been going out to dinner 5 nights a week? And so they're trying to use all these other things that have nothing to do with your claim. And certainly if you left a prior employment, a lot of people, Rachel, they leave their employment, they work until they can't anymore. They didn't share their illness with everybody else, and often a lot of coworkers didn't know that the person had a disability that prevented them from working or doing their job at the manner they were supposed to, so they left. They don't need Berkshire or Guardian calling up the past coworkers or calling a hospital or calling someone else to start talking about what was going on in their life. It's an invasion of their privacy, and it was nothing they were ever told when they bought these policies. Say, guess what? We're going to call all your past coworkers. We're going to call all your family members. We're going to send an investigator out and go talk to people who may have seen you. We're going to follow you around and do all of these things. Nobody knew that when they bought these policies. It was just, they thought it was going to be as easy as, oh, you had an agent come over, you had a medical professional come see me, I gave you blood, you asked me for some tax returns to verify my income, and you took my money all these years. And now you want to know every single thing I'm doing and where I'm doing my laundry and how often. I mean, it gets to the point of ridiculousness, and that's where, Guardian and Berkshire got to get back in line. And that's what you and I do in terms of helping the claimants, is to present what needs to be presented, protecting the claimants so that Guardian can't reach out to them without going through our office. Everything goes to us. There's no communications whatsoever with Guardian unless it's through us, and that gives the claimants a level of protection. So there's so much to talk about with Guardian and Berkshire, but if you have a claim, feel free to reach out to Rachel or myself. Also, we encourage you to do some research on our website, look up some case reviews about Guardian, watch our other videos about Guardian, and look into the videos and information we have about medical conditions and occupation, because we really want you to be educated about this process, because the more educated you are, I can guarantee you're going to put yourself in a much better position to get your claims approved. The best part is, go ahead and send us a copy of your disability policy. Call us, fill out the free consultation form on our website. Rachel, myself, any of the lawyers will provide you with an initial free consultation. We will review the whole policy. We'll let you know what we think about your claim. We'll give you some suggestions as to what we think it's going to take to get you approved. And we really look forward to the opportunity to help you should you need us in the future. Thank you.